If you're thinking about moving to Hamilton, Ontario in 2025, you're going to want to know what it costs to live here. And if you already live here and you're thinking of buying a house, this breakdown is also going to be helpful. Now, there's more to this than just the mortgage payment. Buying the house is just the start. Most cost of living breakdowns will give you maybe the property price, maybe they'll throw in something about taxes, maybe groceries, and that's about it, and then they call it a day. But that's not how real life works. Once you got the keys, that's when the real monthly expenses start rolling in. And if you didn't prepare for them properly, it can easily go from I'm good to I'm in danger.
I'm in danger!
And if you don't know what's coming and you don't prepare, that first year of homeownership can hit you a lot harder than you think. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly what it costs to own a home in Hamilton, Ontario in 2025. No fluff, no nonsense, just some numbers. So buckle up. It's going to be a fun one. So obviously we can't start a cost of living breakdown without going into what homes actually cost here. So the first thing is going to be a detached home, which is hovering around $860,000 on average. Townhomes will be around $675,000, and then condos will be around $450,000. Now, obviously, your monthly breakdown is going to be quite a bit different depending on what type of property you buy and at what price point. But for the sake of this video, we're going to assume you buy something that's $650,000, which is a fairly realistic entry point for a lot of first-time buyers. So you're eyeing that home for $650,000. You put 5% down. You get a 5.5% interest rate on a 25% mortgage, which is a fairly typical situation for a lot of first-time buyers. So what you'd expect in that situation, your down payment will be about $32,000. You also have CMHC insurance because whenever you put less than 20% down on a house, you have to pay CMHC insurance, which gets rolled into your mortgage. It's not an extra amount you have to pay up front, but it will increase your monthly cost. So just keep that in mind. In this case, it would be about $24,000 that's rolled into your mortgage. So your mortgage amount, your total loan that the bank is giving you, goes up by $24,000. So in this case, the total loan amount would be $641,500. So in this scenario, your monthly payment would be $3,950 per month. So that amount is going to cover your mortgage principal, the interest, and the insurance that you're going to have to pay if you're putting less than 20% down, like I mentioned. Now, I know that's a pretty sizable chunk, and we're only at the start of this video, but keep in mind, a large chunk of that is going into the house and it's building your equity. That money's not completely gone. And remember as well, this number isn't universal. It's going to change quite a bit depending on what type of house you buy, but also your particular financial situation, what rates you get, what your credit score is. So you're going to want to speak to a licensed mortgage professional for an actual breakdown of what you would be paying so that you can make a more realistic budget based on your situation and you know exactly what you're going to be expecting. All right, so the mortgage amount is just the beginning. Next, we have the property taxes. Property taxes in Hamilton aren't as outrageous as they are in the GTA, but they're not nothing either. It's often something that's overlooked when people are doing their monthly analysis, especially because they're paid annually, they're not paid monthly. But you want to make sure that you do budget for this when you're breaking down your monthly costs, because when the next year starts and you have to pay this amount, it can be completely blindsiding. Right now, Hamilton's tax rate is around 1 to 1.2% of your property's assessed value. So in the case of the $650,000 home, you'd be paying around $6,500 per year in annual property taxes. So if you're budgeting for this monthly, it's going to be around $540 a month. Now here's the part that trips up a lot of first-time buyers. The tax rates can vary based on the neighborhood. Some areas can have higher charges depending on the services that are being provided to that particular area, so you're going to want to double check that. What you're going to want to do instead is, if you're buying in Hamilton, you can go over to the City of Hamilton's website. They have a property tax calculator there. You tell them what the purchase price is, tell them the neighborhood, all that stuff, and then it'll tell you exactly what the tax would be for that particular house. So bottom line, budget another $500 to $600 per month for this. Just make sure you put that aside so you're not blindsided at the end of the year when you have to pay the taxes for the following year. And don't try to avoid your taxes because the CRA does not like that, or so I hear. I always pay my taxes. All right, so you bought the house, you paid your tax for the year, and you've moved in. Now it's time to pay your utilities. So the basics, you got your hydro, you got your water, you got your gas. I know hydro and water sound like the same thing, but they're not. Hydro is electricity. I don't know. Expect to pay around $250 to $400 a month. That'll depend greatly on the square footage of the house, how many people you have living there. how much you like hot showers, that sort of thing. It's also going to depend on the energy efficiency of the home. Older homes tend to be less energy efficient and therefore a little bit more pricey to run. And then you got to factor in internet as well, which is going to be maybe around $80 to $150 per month. And if you're working from home, you're going to want good quality internet. You don't want to cheap out on that, so make sure to budget for this. Or if you're streaming all of your content, which like let's be honest, most of us do. I don't think anybody watches cable anymore, so. And then if you're buying a condo, you're going to have your condo fees, which it varies greatly depending on the building. Some of them will include your utilities in that, some of them won't. So you want to make sure you know exactly what your condo fees are and are not covering. That one's going to vary quite a bit, and it's not going to apply to everybody. So I'm hesitant to just throw a random number out there because they vary way too much. So for your utilities and services, you're going to want to budget about $400 to $550. I would say that's a pretty solid amount to budget for this. You can keep it a little bit lower if you're frugal, but if you have a bigger family or you have multiple devices, then it's going to be on the higher side. Owning a home also means protecting it and keeping it standing. So you're going to also want to budget for home insurance and maintenance. So for home insurance, you're going to want to expect anywhere from $80 to $120 a month. That's going to depend on the size, the location, a bunch of different factors. And then for maintenance, the golden rule is to budget $1 per square foot per year. So if you have a 1,500 square foot home, you're going to want to budget $1,500 per year for that maintenance of that house. That's just general upkeep, little tweaks, little things here and there that are just going to inevitably break, replacing doorknobs, burnt out light bulbs, that sort of stuff. And then you're going to want to also have a little bit set aside for emergency repairs. As things like leaky roofs, if the furnace dies, things like that you're going to have somebody come fix. If you have to hire a plumber, stuff like that, it's good to have a cash buffer for that stuff. So ideally, it's best to budget about $200 a month for this. Ideally, as much as possible, but try to have around $200 a month going into a savings account that just sits there for stuff like this to inevitably come up. You're going to be very thankful that you do have this. Whether you're behind the wheel or you're on the bus, getting around Hamilton is more expensive than people think, especially if you still have ties to the GTA. So if you own a car, you're going to be probably paying around $400 to $700 a month in your payments. Now that's going to depend on the make, model. Obviously, if you're driving around in a Lambo, it's going to be a little bit more. I'm assuming you're probably not watching an affordability video if you're driving a Lambo, so just ignore that. Now, your car insurance, depending on your driving history, maybe it'll set you back around $150 to $250 a month. Then you got gas, depending on how much you drive, you're going to be about $150 to $300 a month, give or take. And then maintenance, it's best to budget about $75 a month on average for that. That's things like oil changes, just regular tune-ups, that sort of thing. And those, surprise noises that you ignore for a while and end up getting a lot worse, those end up being expensive, so make sure to budget for that. So for your transportation, you're going to want to budget around $700 to $1,200 a month, and if there's two people living in your household, you're going to want to double that if they're both going to be commuting. The next category we have is groceries. This is one that's a little tricky to budget for because it's all over the place. So groceries, if you're living by yourself, you can expect maybe around $300 to $400 a month. That's assuming you're eating fairly well. You're not eating craft dinner for every meal. If you are fine with that, then you can get that number down lower. I don't generally recommend that just for health reasons, but you do you. And then you can expect to double that number if you're a couple. And then you got your dining and takeout. It's best to budget around $200 to $500 a month for this. Because let's be honest, you're not going to be cooking 7 nights a week. You're going to want to go out with friends sometimes. That's totally fine. You just want to make sure that you budget for that. So for your groceries and your food, you're going to want to budget around $600 to $1,300 a month. I know that's quite a range because it's going to just depend generally on what happens in your life. People are going to want to go out and do things. So you want to make sure you have a little bit of a buffer there for that. And remember, the key isn't to cut everything out of your life. It's just to get a general idea of what you're going to be spending and make sure that you have the money allocated to it. All right, this last category is for all those little things that end up piling up, $50 here, $10 here, $100 there, and it ends up adding up to quite a large bill. So you want to budget for your cell phone, depending on your provider, you're going to be about maybe $65 to $120 a month for that. You got your streaming services, maybe around $50 a month, depending on how many subscriptions you have. Maybe you have Amazon Prime, you have Netflix, you got Crave, you got all of them, right? There's no way I'm watching ads. Like that's for peasants. I'm not doing it. Then if you have a gym membership or any sports leagues, you're probably going to be around $50 to $150 a month for that. Whether you have a Good Life membership or you're going to spin classes or anything like that. Now, another one that people don't really factor in is their pets. If you're planning to get a pet and you don't already have one, they can be a little pricey. You're gonna want to budget about $100 to $200 a month for that. You gotta factor in food, grooming, vet visits, that $28 chew toy that they end up discarding in favor of an Amazon box. It all adds up. Then you got your household supplies. You got things like toilet paper, paper towels, light bulbs, laundry detergent, those little things that you kind of just forget about. You're gonna want to budget around $50 a month for those. Also, make sure you don't forget about things that I like to call life taxes, which is your birthday gifts, wedding gifts, stuff of that nature that just comes up every so often that you are somewhat obligated to pay. I mean, you can choose not to if you want to be that guy, but yeah. So for these extra goodies, you're going to budget about $400 to $600 a month. This is kind of like the soft underbelly of your budget. It's unnoticeable until at the end of the month you're like, whoa, how did I spend this much, right? So you want to make sure that you are aware of this in advance, that all these little extra expenses can come and they will come. So make sure you have a little bit set aside for that as well. All right, so now for the fun part, we get to add it all up and see what we're working with. So the total monthly cost of living in Hamilton in 2025 is $7,565 per month. Oof. It's a bit rough. So that's just using realistic midpoints of everything we talked about, the property taxes, mortgage, utilities, groceries. So yeah, all that added up, you're looking at around $7,565 per month. So that's for a $650,000 home. And your biggest expense out of all of that is the home itself. But remember, most of that money is going into the home. It's not an expense going out of your pocket every single month. That's going to build your equity. So in closing, Hamilton's not cheap, I'll be honest, but nowhere really in Southern Ontario is these days. And if you're watching this video, you're probably considering Hamilton for one reason or another. Maybe you have family here, work, or you're moving here for some reason, or you're at least considering it. And whether you decide to rent or buy, the money's going out of your account either way. The only difference is who's actually getting rich off of it. You can pay your landlord's mortgage off, or you can pay your own. Now, I know that number might seem really high, and I don't want this video to scare you off, just to give you more of a realistic picture of what to expect. Now, I'm going to be putting out more affordability-based content like this as well, so you can figure out how to reduce those expenses as much as possible. One of the big ones that I like is house hacking. It's the pinned video on my channel. If you want, you can go take a look at that and figure out how to go about doing that, and you can reduce that housing expense quite a bit if you go about it that way. And if you're serious about buying a home in Hamilton and you want some guidance, you can always reach out to me. I'd love to help you out. My contact info is up on the screen. You can reach out at any time. It's also down in the description. Or if you're just in the early stages of your research, you can always download my free first-time home buyer survival guide. It'll walk you through the entire process, start to finish, so you know exactly how to prepare financially, how to write your offers, and what to look for in a home so you don't get screwed. All that's down in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you found some value in this video. I'm going to be putting out more like this. You don't want to miss them. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.